Hey there, my name is Fionn Laird. I play Nicky Wilholm in The Institute, and you're watching Pop Culture with Pat.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Hey guys, welcome back to Pop Culture with Pat. I'm so excited to be joined by today's guests. Today I'm talking to Finn Laird, who plays Nick in The Institute. Finn, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me, Pat. I'm really looking forward to it. Woo.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this because I read the book prior to this. So I remember when this show had actually got announced, I was like, "Ooh, I really love the book, so I can't wait to see what
Nice.
they're going to do with the series." And so, can you just talk a little bit to start off? What was it about the story in the Institute and the character of Nick that really kind of drew you in initially?
Well, I'm kind of a sucker for Stephen King and psychic supernatural kids to begin with. I mean, I think his first published book, at least under like Stephen King, was Carrie, I'm
Area.
pretty sure, which is about, like this, it's kind of this staple, like kind of horror psychic abilities thriller book, and I've been a fan of that for a long time. So when I it came across my agent sent it over, and I read the book, and I'm like, oh, this is like it was written in 2019, so it's fairly newer for like a King novel, but I'm like, this is classic Stephen King. This is like, wow. And it's like what, like 600 pages, something like that. So I really got into it, and it has a lot of meat to it. So that was exciting. And then, when I finally got it, and then I found out I was playing Nick, I was like, oh, like this is probably one of the more like complex younger characters of the book, but just a fun role overall. So I kind of got the best of both worlds as an actor. I could have a lot of fun with it, but could also really find out what makes him tick and explore that throughout the series.
Yeah,
Yeah.
as far as Stephen King goes, I mean, when it comes to his characters, there's no characters where there's not enough material, I feel like, to really sink
No.
your teeth into, which is must always be fun as far as like adapting things. So for you, how did you want to stay true to the character from that original story, but then also bring something to it yourself and make the character your own as well?
Yeah, I think it's just like I said before, that the process of having fun with it as opposed to trying to follow this strict path, I guess, of what Stephen King has set out for me. And that's definitely a part of it. But Jack, who's done like other Stephen King adaptations before, he has it kind of down to a science. And so I was able to work with him in a way where I was, making discoveries by myself, but also staying true to the vision that Stephen King had through Jack Bender. And then, whenever I found like, oh, maybe I'm unsure about um, where Nicky is at this point, I just referred back to the book, and I could then, have that reference. And so I kind of had all I guess, the exits and entrances of Nicky kind of locked down, and I was able to really have a very specific vision for what I wanted to do.
Nick he has a lot of hurt and anger in his past. So what was it like to kind of get to explore that as an actor with your character throughout this first season?
Yeah, well, I think that the interesting part about Nick is that he's such a different, I guess, person from me. And so kind of having to get that all up there for, specific scenes where he brings it up, or it becomes very palpable in his psyche. I think it was difficult to kind of get to that point. Um, Especially, it kind of arrives early on in the season with the abuse that he endures. I imagine, there has to be some like semblance of, I guess, trauma there, like constantly coming up while he's in the institute. So it was very difficult because I'd also never done anything like this on this scale, so I had to kind of throw myself into the deep end, which uh, you know, definitely had its risks, but I'm very thankful that was just like, let's just, tackle it as much as I possibly can. I'm not going to ignore what Nicky's been through. I'm going to try to make it as specific as I possibly can, and connect it to what he's going through in the moment, as opposed to just like doing the table work and then leaving it, just like bringing it up in the moment.
It must have been a lot of fun to explore a character like that. Like you said, is so different from yourself, just getting to, even though, I mean, I'd say fun, but it's like the character has a lot of, anger and hurt in his past. So it's in one way fun, but in other ways, I'm sure like maybe um, little challenging as well, just to kind of go through those emotions too.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, definitely challenging, but I'd say it was made all the better by like having the young actors I was working with, Joe Freeman and Simone Miller, Burva Pandya, Arlen So, and even Viggo Hanvelt, who all, the ensemble that we formed together, where, they've all kind of gone through, shit. I don't know if I can
Oh yeah, you're
swear on the
good.
show. Um, all the shit that they've all been through, they're kind of all in this together. And so when I did have those moments of like, well, this is pretty hard for me, I would look over and like, be in the scene with Joe or Simone specifically, who I had a lot more moments with, and they were also going through, with their character the exact same thing. So even though it was like, a little bit spooky, I think, as like a less experienced television and film actor to go through that, I was definitely never alone um, in that kind of in that work.
Which that makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
speaking of Kalisha and Nick, they share a complicated relationship in this
Yeah.
series. So why do you think those two ended up connecting with each other the way that they did? And can you just talk about getting to explore that relationship and dynamic with Simone in the series?
Yeah, I think part of it, and specifically why I think they all connected so quickly in the book and then also in the show, is a little bit of trauma bonding.
Yeah,
I think that for Nicky particularly, I can't speak for Simone, I don't think, but for Nicky, I think it's very much a found family situation where he's always been either a black sheep or an outcast or someone who's never had a family of his own, specifically not like blood related. So he's never had the opportunity to let his guard down and trust people. But in the institute, they're constantly in fight or flight mode, in this defensive mode, and so he kind of had to hunker down with the only people he could trust. And I think Nicky and Kalisha had both been there at least, more or less the longest, specifically Kalisha. So I think they had that time to bond, and with the intense things they're going through, specifically for Nicky, he formed that attachment with her. Um, and then with, Simone and I, specifically, later in the show, I'm not going to say anything,
yeah,
but the fact I think that we shot it chronologically really helped with the development of that relationship. And that, yes, it's like this crush, this kind of like, I guess, what do we call it? Situationship
yeah.
now, right? Where it's like they're dating, but like it's implied, but like never really said out loud. And so, at first it's very like, I'd say almost innocent. And then it really kind of, yeah, as I say, trauma bonding speeds up relationships, I think, very quickly. And so they, we were able to have that go in order, I guess, of the show. So it was convenient to be able to do that.
Which is interesting too, because I know that's not always the case, whether it's films or movies, you don't always shoot in chronological order. It's like sometimes you could be filming the very end of like a show or something, and then all of a sudden you go back to, the beginning. So that's interesting that you guys kind of went in chronological or order. And you also have Nick and Luke. They kind of immediately connect with each other, and they're almost immediately start trying to figure out a way to try and get out of the institute. So. Can you just talk about what do you think that Nick sees in him? And then just, how did you build that relationship with Joe working on the series?
So specifically with Joe, our first day on set, both of our first days on set was together. And it was actually that scene and both scenes where we're like conspiratorially talking about how we're gonna get out, what we're gonna do, and me kind of grilling him to like see if he's gonna like if he's up for this. So it was interesting because we were both like terrified, and so we kind of had to have that rapport right off the bat of like, I trust you. Um, and I think that came from, you know, Luke arrives and he's immediately skeptical. And, Nikki recognizes that. And I think, obviously there's like the TP, like kind of this psychological connection aspect, but also I think Nikki recognizes when someone is um as bitter and as like, not immediately trusting as everyone else. Because, Kalisha and George are they're going along with it
Yeah.
essentially, but immediately I think he sees especially that Luke this is episode one, I think I can say, but Luke
Yeah.
has been hurt by someone in the Institute at this point, and Nikki recognizes that and is very familiar with that part of the Institute. So I think he's like, oh, this guy's a fighter, whether or not he's as like outspoken or as, I guess, fiery about it as I am doesn't matter because he has a brain on him. So there's that resistance he recognizes. Yeah.
And also, can you talk about how the relationship or the dynamic kind of changes amongst the group once we have Avery comes into the fray of things in episode 3? Because I thought that was really interesting how to kind of mix things up when you have someone who can hear pretty much everyone else's thoughts, knows exactly what they're thinking, and kind of it's like, okay, we have to be a little careful here.
Exactly, right. I mean, there's a whole scene where Avery essentially just says what everyone thinks about each other. And because they're all at the table, and there's just kind of this awkward, like, well, what are you supposed to do in that situation? Because it's like, oh, why didn't you tell me that? Or like, why? You're right. It changes things. It's kind of like a loss of trust almost. It's like, yeah, we've been very close, but this I feel like this would be a very important part of our relationship, and it's gone unspoken. So it adds a little bit of I think like, oh, we need to do this fast, otherwise we might start to turn on each other.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all going to be out there in the open when you have someone who can do that kind of, and especially he's not necessarily doing it on purpose. It's just because of
Yeah,
how old he is as a kid, and so
yeah.
he's saying these things and doesn't think that it could be harmful or cause issues amongst the different relationships. But meanwhile, you guys are like, okay, well, this is a little awkward now. Everything's kind of out there in the open.
Yeah, the social cues he doesn't have, so
Yeah,
it kind of, but I think they all recognize that like they're all in this together, regardless of interpersonal relationships, like and regardless of what this kid is saying, they have to get out of there. It's life or death, I think, and so
yeah,
it's this push and pull of like, oh, there's still that social expectation. We're still kids, but we're also in this essentially a prison. So
yeah.
it's
Working
weird.
towards the same goal. Now, for
Yeah.
you, Finn, because I know we were talking about earlier, Stephen King, our love of Stephen King. So, for you personally, what makes him a master storyteller for you, and what are some of his favorite works?
Well, definitely Carrie. I think I discovered Carrie through the musical.
Oh,
Believe
wow.
it or not, it had an off-Broadway musical, and I loved it. And then I read the book, and I'm like, oh, this is brilliant. And then I watched the movie, and I thought it was brilliant. So I'm more of like I'd say Carrie fan overall, but also I've read it and a lot of his horror properties, and I think what makes him just specifically a brilliant storyteller, I guess not just in horror, right? Because like Life of Chuck also people love.
So good.
And I think what makes it so great is that he leads you towards a conclusion in a way that builds tension and builds stakes and like it's constantly increasing and rising, but you're like, oh, surely it wouldn't get to that point. You're kind of you're in this like state of denial while you're reading his books. Where like, surely he wouldn't go this far, or surely it's not going to take this turn, and and then it gets to that point, or it blows your expectations out of the water and goes even beyond what you were imagining. And I think I think that's what makes it great. Even like Life of Chuck, where you're like, oh, geez, and specifically I think for me like Carrie, like the pig blood moment and then like what ensues, I'm like, so just that his ability to just draw something on for so long and keep you in there rather than like getting bored or thinking it gets monotonous. You're just like enraptured with what the world he's creating.
So you must
Yeah.
be pretty excited for the new Carrie series that they're just starting to work on. That's probably going to be coming out in the next couple of years.
Oh yeah, and I love like Mike Flanagan as well and his work with Hill House and oh, what else has he done? I think he's done. He might have done another Stephen King adaptation.
Yeah, he did Doctor Sleep, like probably one of
Doctor
my
Sleep.
favorites in the past, I'd say like
Yeah.
decade or so or whatever. But yeah, I mean Mike Flanagan, he's kind of becoming almost like the go-to Stephen King adapter. So, but yeah, I mean that Pet Cemetery, that
Mm.
scared the crap out of me as a kid, and that's still like every time I go to watch that original film, I read the book too, but that's still just it just has this like feeling to it and just really gets underneath your skin. Like you
Mm.
said, I mean, that's obviously a classic. There's so many. I'm up here in New Hampshire, so I went up to
Ooh, cool.
Bangor a couple years ago and did the Stephen King tour. So you get to see like all the different locations and stuff like that. And it was
Oh,
really neat to kind of see some of those locations and just kind of all the history of Stephen King and his family up there. So if you ever get
absolutely.
the chance to go up to Bangor, it's definitely something that I recommend you check out.
Yeah, absolutely, man. No, I'd be happy to. That's awesome.
Now, I'm sure as an actor, there's moments where, you're going through the script and you're looking at things and you're like, I'm really interested to see how this specific scene or specific elements of a story is going to translate from the script to the screen. So for you at the Institute, what were those moments or elements that you can at least talk about right now?
I was excited to see translate. Oh, um, I was very curious about huh. Yeah, that's tough. I think there's a moment where there's a moment with a lot of action. This is going to sound so lame because I can't say anything, but
Oh,
there's
you're
a
good.
moment with a lot of action that I'm involved in that was very, I get very descriptive about what happens in it and very long. And I just I wanted to be a part of it so badly. And so I really, from the get-go, I was talking with, um, the director Jack Bender and Eddie who did our stunts. I was like, hey, I want to do like, if at all possible, keep the stunt doubles at bay. I want to do this. So I just wanted to see what would happen and be really involved in like this, a big action sequence, which would
Yeah.
be great. That and then also, um, I really all the experiments that they do on on Joe's character Luke and on Avery as well, and the things that go on in the Institute. I was very curious to see because uh, it's very graphic and
Yeah.
very emotionally intense, especially for the actors and for a lot of sort of mechanical things they have to do, like effects wise. They're just very involved, and so I was very curious to see how they go about that. And having watched episode 1 and 2, I'm like, oh, and it's just gonna get more intense. So it's really
Oh
cool to
yeah.
see what they've done with that.
Yes, I haven't read the book. It's like I have an idea, obviously, of what's to come. I'm sure you
Yeah.
guys probably adapted it your way, so there's probably, straying from the story a little bit, which I'm excited to see how that
Hmm.
plans out. But I think that's a great tease for what's to come, and I kind of have an idea of I think what you're talking about. Well, Finn, just to wrap things up, is there anything else that you would like to say about just your experience of working on the Institute, and then where can fans stay up to date with you moving forward?
Yeah, I think. Oh, anything else I want to say about the Institute? Just that I don't know. I feel like people should, if you want like a classic, just a classic Stephen King experience, whether it be like a series adaptation, something like that, I'd say give it a go. And if you're looking for like I don't know, an ensemble piece where everyone in it cared so much about it, and it very much was like a group effort, um, give it a chance.
Yeah.
And yeah, try to figure out the mystery for yourself. Yeah, don't read the book if you haven't read the book. Watch the
Yeah.
series first and then read the book because I feel like that's if I were to experience this, I would definitely want to watch this first. But yeah,
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. Like usually, so that I just happened to, because at the time it's like
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
know, but I probably should have guessed. It's like at some point they'll adapt this into a show or a movie or something because a ton of his books are obviously adapted into different material. But it's like, yeah, usually if I know something, if I haven't read the book of a series or a movie going in, I'll be like, okay, let me watch it first, get that experience, and then I can always go back and read the book afterwards. And yeah, I feel like that's fun to kind of compare like after you've
Mhm.
seen both on like their own accord. And yeah, I mean, as far
Yes.
as like social media, where can fans catch you and stay up to date with your projects?
Yeah, you guys can check me out at FN Laird, FNLAIRD on Instagram. And yeah, that's pretty much the only social media I have. So check me out there.
Hey, I mean, I'm on Instagram myself, and so I totally get it. But yeah, hey, I just want to say thank you so much for your time today. From what I've seen so far with the show, I'm loving it. You guys did a great job. Congratulations on that. And you are welcome back anytime in the future.
Can't wait to be back. Thank you so much, Pat. Hey there, my name is Fionn Laird. I play Nicky Wilholm in the Institute, and you're watching Pop Culture with Pat.